We are live. Hello, everyone. Let us know if you can see us, you can hear us. I am so looking forward to not just today's topics. I think this is something that we've seen come up a lot in this summit, but really we have an incredible lineup of speakers today. So if you're just joining in, let us know in the chat if this is your first session, your second session, if you have been here for every single one. And I know that there are some of you here that have. And what you can look forward to today. So today's panel discussion is going to be around something that I think impacts a lot of creators, no matter what stage of business you're in, and that is our mindset. And if you have been experiencing any issues with fear, or you're stepping into a new adventure and you're doubting yourself, or you find that for some reason, if there are really important things that you have to do, they seem to be pushed off to your next to-do list and you procrastinate, this topic is going to be for you. So to kick things off, I would love to introduce you to our amazing lineup of guests. We have Leslie Samuels, Kim Coles, and Sarah Potempa. And just to kick things off, I'd love for us to do a round robin style intro. So if you want to go around to say your name, what your business is, and then we will kick things off. And Leslie, we will start with you here at the top.
All right. My name is Leslie Samuel. I am a business coach for online creators. My main platform is at becomeablogger.com, where I teach blogging, but I also teach video, YouTube, podcasting, all of that good stuff. Basically, you have a message you want to get out into the world and you want to build a business while doing that. That is my focus. And that's what I help people do.
Amazing. And next we've got Miss Kim.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kim Coles, and you may know me as an actress, comedian, but I'm also an author and a speaker and a coach. And my main focus is coaching entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs around the power of their story and storytelling to create a beautiful message and captivate and connect with their clients and their customers and cash. That was a lot of C's in that sentence right there. And that's what I love doing so much.
And I'm looking forward to diving into that as well. And last but not least, we have Miss Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Potempa. I'm a celebrity hairstylist. I'm usually working with actresses. I'm also the inventor of the beach waiver. So I've been styling celebrities for the red carpet, for events for 20 years. I've worked with lots of actresses, musicians, Reese Witherspoon, Ali Larter. I was on tour last year with Camila Cabello and Taylor Swift. So I travel around style hair, but 10 years ago, I invented a curling iron called the Beach Waver. I started a business with my sisters. So I am an entrepreneur. We are self-funded and we're sold in 13 countries and have 5,000 retail stores that carry our products. And yeah, we're now building up a direct to consumer. We have a large network. I've got 500 Wave members and I have 100 college students, and we all kind of work together to spread positivity and support and help other entrepreneurs. Women, men are all in the program, and we kind of work together to build a lot of community in the beauty industry.
Love it. I thank you all for these amazing intros. And I think what's going to be so interesting about today's discussion is that you all have very different backgrounds and perspectives and experiences. And as we've been going through this summit, a lot of the things that we've been going through in these workshops revolve around being visible. So whether that is social media, your videos, even just being the face of your brand. And that conversation usually triggers a bit of just this feeling of overwhelm, this feeling of, I don't know if I'm good enough to be the face of my brand, or who am I to be on video? And Kim, I would love to direct this question to you, because I know your career has literally revolved around being visible. What would you say to people who find the idea of being the face of their business or stepping out into this in this area a little bit overwhelming?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, I've been visible for 35 years as a performer, as a comedian, as an actress. But when I stepped into the realm of being a coach and an entrepreneur who wanted to coach other entrepreneurs, I actually had a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of who am I to step into this new realm that I am not proven in? However, what I think it's important to do is to be really tapped into what your gifts are, what your talents are, what you want to bring to the world. And when you're having any, doubts or concerns, or I don't know if I'm the one, I think you let that pull you forward. I truly believe that you wouldn't have the desire to do what you want to do without the way for it to happen to show up. And you have to show up in order to make it happen. And so anytime I'm having any kind of wobble or had a wobble around, I don't know, I'm moving to a new level, who am I to be visible in this space? I just went, wait a minute, there are people who I want to help. There are people who I want to serve. And if I'm not visible, they don't get helped. And that pulled me through and pulls me through even to this day if I ever have a question mark. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I actually want to dive into that a little bit because I think, let's say we move past that feeling of overwhelm. We're like, okay, you know what? I'm scared, but I'm just going to go out there and do it anyways. I think that the next step is also knowing like, well, how am I going to communicate my message? How am I going to, despite this fear, share what my gifts are, what my passions are? And how do we get clarity on that when it comes to like voicing what our message is?
Well, I think if you don't feel that you can clarify it yourself, you get help. You work with a coach, ding, or someone or a mentor. There's plenty out there to get you, even to get your message templated. Do you know what I mean? There's a way to be able to share your message that has been shared, that other people share their messages 1,000 times. There's a way to do it, and you can just follow those who do it, but do it your way, of course, and get help. The thing about this journey is that the more you invest in yourself, even showing up to this summit, is all about investing and pouring into yourself and pouring into your mind what you need to know to up level to the next level. So I would say get the help that you need if that's not your area of expertise, to get your message super clear, because the clearer you are, the more people will be able to hear you and resonate with what it is that you want to serve them with.
It's such a great point on having clarity in your message. And it's interesting because I think, and I would love to know in the chat, if you are new to business, if you've been in business for a while, whether it's, you're a newbie or an advanced entrepreneur, when you get into rooms or conversations or situations where you feel like everyone else knows what they're doing, you're the only person that's almost like faking it. And the issue is that it can be very paralyzing. And even though you are good enough, even though you know your message, it's almost hard to communicate that because you've got all these nerves and this self-doubt. And Sarah, I mean, we spoke about this offline, but I know you have been in these very situations where you have felt like, hang on, everyone else here is just like doing these incredible things. Can you walk through like how you kind of navigate those situations?
Yes. So having worked with celebrities for 20 years, I could tell you I've been in this situation multiple times. So when I first started styling hair, I was backstage, and my goal was actually to be an onstage artist, to do more editorial, like high fashion. And I was doing that. I was doing about 30 shows a season as an assistant, popping around. But my agent was like, I can see you as a celebrity hairdresser. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? Like, what does this mean? So I've been in so many situations with very high profile, whether they're actresses or whether they're a politician. I remember a very clear story. I worked with Barack Obama for the cover of Vanity Fair, and I trimmed his eyebrows, I trimmed his hair, and I feel like sometimes in this scenario, you might think, oh my gosh, this is so intimidating. Like, these people are so powerful. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody, like, I can't believe I'm in this situation, right? But I remember there was a moment there where I was like, oh, I'm from Libertyville. And he was like, I've been to Libertyville. And then he was like, oh, we're talking about college football. I was like, my dad played college football. And then we started to relate on things that were kind of unrelated to the outside world. And I was like, oh, everyone is just a person just like you. And there's so many ways that you can connect with them. And if you bring to the table what you do well, and I remember I was like, I'm going to trim those eyebrows, and that's my goal, because I'd seen a photo where I was like, I want to clean those up. And that's my expertise. That's something I do, is beauty, right? It's hairstyling. It's really bringing what I've learned in my expertise to the table. That gives you that room, right? It gives you that space to say like, hey, this is how I can make it better, right? And I remember the photographer shooting, and he says, do you know Sarah's from Chicago? And he was like, oh yeah, she's my homegirl. And I was like, ah. That was like a moment comment of like, it's because we connected on just like where I lived and like what my family did and just some basic things that give you that like clarity and that calmness to say like, I totally belong here because I have a skill that I'm bringing to the table that's different than everybody else, and I think that's when you can tap into like, what is your skill set? Like, what can you bring to the table? Because you know things that not everyone else knows. I have so many, even beauty editors that'll be like, well, I don't really know how to do hair. You guys come and do my hair for me. And then I write about it. And I'm like, oh, so I'm the one bringing the expertise of the beauty industry to you for your article. So I think that's what you guys have to envision is like, what is the thing that you have? And what are things that make you interesting that you would want to share? Because most likely people, whether they're politicians, actresses, or a boss or somebody else might be able to relate to you because they've had those experiences too.
So I'm going to dive into this because one, that is such incredible advice of thinking of like, what are your strengths? And I think sometimes we overlook the things that we do well or things that we think aren't actually that important or wouldn't really resonate with people. But what would you say to someone, let's say, it's a little bit different now because we're not doing in-person conferences, but I know one of the things that I've seen in the chat, it was in another session where people were struggling with networking. And I know that when you are in environments, even if you bring up things like, oh, I'm from this place and I'm from this place, there can still be that feeling of, do they like me? Like, have we connected? Are there any things that you say to yourself in these situations to kind of, if things aren't going well, to kind of help you kind of push through those moments?
So I personally feel like listening is a big key. And having worked with actresses and performers and musicians, I often will kind of take a back seat at first and really listen. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, I've been talking about what I do or what I like or what I have to offer, and you feel like you're not getting that feedback and you're not able to connect with people, ask them about themselves. And I even have to remember this as someone who loves to talk and loves to connect. I often have to take a moment and say, well, what do you think about this? Have you ever been to this place? And I think when you shift the conversation and you're willing to listen and learn about that person, then it gives you more depth and you understand who they are. And they have that opportunity to say, yeah, let me tell you about my trip here, what I do here, what I love to do, or whatever it is. That kind of connection makes it not just about you being in your head thinking like, oh, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? And I have found over 20 years of working with so many talented, really incredible people. In the beginning of my career, I thought like, they're so intimidating. And how could I even be in a room with them? And then by the end of my career, I'm like, wow, they are talented artists that love to collaborate. And I just have this like obsession with meeting artists like that and people that are performers because I find them to be so fascinating. And just like you, in a room of people that are very powerful or maybe that you look up to or that inspire you, ask them about their life and they will happily share their stories. And then that's how you establish a really nice foundation and a connection.
Super, super helpful. Yeah, I love this concept of like listening and not feeling like you have to be the one to like perform and like give them all of this stuff. So one thing that is very interesting, I think, is that and let me know in the chat if you resonate with this, but I think that when you're stepping out into a new venture, all of our fears, all of the things that keep us up at night are all of these what ifs. Before we launch a product, what if no one buys? When we launch a product, what if no one likes it? And it's all of these situations that have never even happened yet. And Leslie, I know you work with so many creators, and I'm curious, like, how do you deal with that feeling of like the what ifs and things that haven't even arrived?
Yeah, such a great question. And I remember one time, so in my previous life, I was a university professor and I was walking away from my lab. And it's when I made the decision that I was going to leave my job and do this online crazy stuff full time. And I remember having a great experience in my lab and then walking away from the lab. And all of a sudden, I just started freaking out as I'm going to my car. And I'm like, oh my word, what am I doing? I am leaving this secure job for this online business thing. And what if it doesn't go well? We just had our son. We want to grow our family. And what if this? What if I fail? What if I don't make as much money as I want to make? What if I can't take care of my family? And there were all of these what ifs. And I felt my heart pacing and I literally was freaking out. And then I went home And when I went home, I said, okay, this is too much. I can't deal with it this way. Let me sit down and let me actually process through this. So I sat down with my computer and I asked myself, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I wrote the answer to that. My business could fail. It's not making enough money. I'm not able to take care of my family and so on. And then I asked myself, well, what is the best thing that could happen? And then I started listing out all of these potential positive things, like my business could thrive. I could make a ton of money. I could serve people all over the world and everything can actually be very successful. And what I noticed was the what if on the positive side, first of all, it far outweighed the what ifs on the negative side. So I decided to go deeper into the what ifs on the negative side. Okay, so if the worst thing were to happen, what would I do? Like, what could I do to fix that situation? And when I started reasoning through that, I started to see that there were actually practical things that I could do. If my business completely failed, well, I could get another job as a professor or a teacher or something of that sort. And I started to realize that, yes, my mind can go crazy and start thinking about all these what ifs. But if I were to actually sit down and process through it, I would see that if this were to happen, there are things that I could do. And on the flip side, if this other amazing stuff were to happen, life is good. At that point, I realized, you know what? It is worth the risk. And my fears subsided significantly because if it got this bad, there are things I could do to fix it. If it got this good, I don't want to fix it. I want more of that. So I'm going to keep doing that. That's how I processed through that. And I've shared that with a number of people. I remember that same day I recorded a podcast because I was so excited about the concept. And it kind of freed people up because you could actually think through the thing that could potentially happen that probably never will, and see that even if that were to happen, you can come out on the other side of it.
That's such an interesting point. I had never even considered the feeling of when you're afraid of something. It's also like you're not prepared for it. Like you're anticipating something happening without it even happening. But okay, let's flip this around. So let's say that you've done this exercise. You've gone on both sides and you're like, the what if it doesn't work? What if it does? You feel prepared, a little bit stressed, but prepared. And you go through this, let's say a launch, and something happens that you didn't anticipate and something flops, or there was a mistake that happened. Do you ever look back at a launch or something that didn't work, and do you ever analyze it, or are there things to do to be able to learn from something that you didn't anticipate?
Absolutely. So I believe in life, there's no failure. You're either successful or you learn from whatever it is you did, right? And for me, it's very important, whether the launch went terribly or whether it went amazing. You want to look back and kind of do a post-mortem. What actually worked? What didn't work? If it just completely flopped, what happened? What could you have done differently? What did you learn in the process? Because there's always something that we can take from that. And if we take those lessons from it, the next launch could be better. And okay, so let's say the next launch is just slightly better, not as good as you wanted it to be still. But what did you learn from that? And how could you tap into other resources and figure out from other people that have done it, or get help from a coach or from a course or something of that sort, so that you can know what to do better next time? Like in this world of building an online business, putting out courses out there and so on, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. So as we take action, as we get results, because we're getting results either way, we need to always be looking back and seeing what worked. What can I take with me? And what are some of those things? You know what? I should not have done that weird dance on that launch. It just made everything flop. Let's leave the dancing to the pros, or whatever that is. Look back, analyze it, see what worked, do more of that. And if something didn't work, either tweak it or leave it alone.
So great. And I think many of us can relate to that dance that we should have left. That's super helpful. And I would love, actually, we're going to do some call to action here in the chat. We'll add all of your social handles, but I would love for everyone here, tag us on Instagram and let us know. You don't have to share a photo of your what if scenarios, but let us know when you've done it. So the thing that you are currently worried about, or the thing that you're about to go into, I would love for you to actually take action on this. Don't just listen and be like, that was a good idea, and then not do it. So let us know and tag us when you have done that. Now, what is interesting here is I think a lot of people, whether you are completely new to business or you're just new to creating online courses, it feels like you are stepping into a completely new world. And what I found so inspiring about your journey, Kim, is that you have done not a complete 180, but you've added a completely new element into your business. And I would love to know for you, I know on the outside, we look at you and we think, she's always confident and she goes into this new course creation space, she crushes it, and everything works great. But I would love to know, how did you build the confidence when you stepped into an area where you didn't have prior experience and you didn't have prior, like you hadn't done it before?
Right. Well, the first thing is I didn't crush it right away. I did my crazy, wacky dance that didn't work too. So whatever the metaphor is for you, that it's your dance or whatever it is, as Leslie was saying, I would say that I actually borrow from myself. And let me explain what I mean. We all have areas in our life where we did crush it, where we did do well, where we are the bomb.com. So when I'm feeling unconfident in a new area or just a little unsure of myself in something new I'm about to step in, I go back and look at my life and all the times where I did crush it, I did do well, I was the bomb.com, and I borrow the confidence from there. I borrow the work ethic from there, and I go, wait a minute, what did I do over there that was a success? I showed up 100%. I got the training I needed. I got the information I needed. I put myself into it, mind, body, and soul. And I had this level of success. Well, all I have to do is do that over here. Well, I can't lose. I can't lose. I will be successful. And I do agree with Leslie very much that there is only success and lessons and growth and possibility. And so I borrow from my past successes. And, it's funny, I was dating this guy a long time ago who when I first was going to visit him in his home, he had his trophies, his track and field trophies from like when he was in high school. And this man was well in his 40s and they were, lined up in his room. And I'm like, are we going back that far for the successes? But for him, those trophies represented, you can look at it and go like he's living in his glory days, or he's remembering his days of when he was excellent, and he was running fast, and he had a big old belly, so he wasn't running that fast right now, but that's okay. He still had that success in him, and that's what you can do. Borrow from your own success and stand on the foundation of that confidence, and it'll at least be the first a good first step. And sometimes that's all you really need, that first step to go, oh, I got this. And then you're off and running. Maybe not like the guy from the track and field with his very dusty trophies, but you get what I mean.
It's so great. I think that's a really important point, not to discount your past successes, as small or as long ago as they may have been. But I'm actually curious. So for your first couple of launches, I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. Are there some things that you learned maybe in the planning stages, or things that you have now done differently for your course launches that you just didn't even think that you would learn until you went through that process?
Yeah, I had to learn that you need to respect different learning styles. So I'm an artist and I'm crazy and wacky and I have ideas that pop in and pop out and go on all blah, 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 and I understand it. And there are some crazy, wonderful artists who will understand me, but there are people who learn differently. And so I think that as a course creator, it's so important to provide and speak into the learning styles of everyone that would come to you. And so that takes a little bit of adjusting your particular style and opening up to understand that some people are visual and some people are auditory and some people need it written and some people need the homework delivered this way and some people need it that way and some people need their feedback in a particular way. And so just really being open to learning how you can be the best coach, mentor, and instructor in that way.
Such a great point. And even just like the different learning styles as well. I know we all experienced that yesterday in one of our workshops with Jim, and he made us do like actual activities. Type in the chat if you guys are there. You'll know what I mean. To remember things. And yeah, there's just like so much you don't realize until you go through this process. And like how all of you guys are saying, you learn so much regardless. You learn what works, but also what doesn't.
Mhm.
Now, what I think is really important to highlight is, I mean, someone typed into the chat earlier, they're like, wow, there's so much success in this panel. And I think it's very easy to look at people who are 10, 20, 30 steps ahead and being like, oh, well, it's all great for them because they have these teams and, they do all of these great things. But I do think it is very helpful and important to highlight that you all once started from a certain place, but you have done a lot of the work yourself. And Sarah, I know for you, when people look at the success of Beach Waiver, what they might not realize is that I mean, even when you were doing your first QVC show, you did like everything yourself. And I would love if you could kind of talk about that and what that experience was like when you were starting out.
Yes. So I think that is a great point, Jess, because we are self-funded. We're a female-founded brand. My sister Erin and I are still literally like the warehouse is right out the door over there, and I'm out there packing boxes sometimes. I go to help. So I mean, there's definitely like you get to this point in your career, but it definitely starts somewhere, and it's not easy. And we also, because we're self-funded, it's been every personal dime. That means I have no investors. We have nobody kind of handing it to us, right? So the whole thing started because I had a sketch. I sketched out the idea for a curling iron, literally on a piece of paper. And I was like, this would make it so much easier for people to curl their hair. And that's all I thought. And then my older sister quit her job as a corporate lawyer and shifted. And she was like, I want to do a business with you. So we literally started, the two of us, on the phone. I was in New York and I'm like, just so you know, I'm still going to be a hairdresser. So I know you're going to leave that and do this. And so I was like kind of scared of really letting go of any of that. So honestly, we started just the two of us with a sketch. I had an idea and I happened to be talking to some people and trying to find the right connection. And I had the opportunity to pitch the idea to a buyer at KBC. So that's kind of how it started, but we had nothing. I had no product. I had no warehouse. I had literally nothing except for an idea. And I ended up trying to figure out, like I used Craigslist to find, I was like, I think I need an electrical engineer and a mechanical engineer. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like I had an opportunity to pitch it and I didn't have the product yet. And so it was really like a stressful time, but I like dug in and I was like, I have to do the work. I have to figure out, how do you make a product? I'm a hairdresser, but I don't know how to make a curling iron. So I figured out how to do it, 3D printing, how to create a mold. And then we literally bought the first rod from Ace Hardware. And we were like, I don't put a heater in it and like put it around the mold that we made out of the printer. So, I mean, that's how we started. We started like with every single step. I did research. I just looked it up. I went and I studied it and I said, okay, how can I make this product? Once we were able to have somebody assemble it, which was literally another guy, the friend of the guy from Craigslist was like, I have someone who knows how to assemble products and get it to plug in and work. And I was like, okay, good. So that's all I had when I went to the meeting was one, and like the piece was falling off. There was only one button that worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pitching it to a buyer. It was crazy. And then she ended up saying, great, like we'd like to order 1,000 units. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have 2. So this is not a good idea. So I was like, I don't know, the best tools are made in Korea. So my sister, and I was pregnant at the time, she was like, I'm going to get on a plane to Korea. And I was like, what? So we did all of these things to like just get there, right? And then when we finally found a family to help us that had a small business that said, okay, we'll make it for you. And if you sell some, you can pay us later. It was just so wild. But when that product arrived, I didn't even know that like JFK Airport also has cargo. At the time, I just assumed it was like, right, we were flying in and out of different places. That's also where the goods fly in. So when we went to go on QVC for the first time ever, and I was so nervous because they were like, if you tank, like you maybe get 3 to 4 airings this year, like good luck, but it's probably it. And when we went to pick up the goods at JFK, my sister said, I don't know, we get a U-Haul? And she was like, we can't afford U-Haul. And I was like, oh my, what do you mean? So we literally got this white truck in Manhattan, drove it to JFK. I got my hairdressing, a guy that assists me sometimes in hairdressing, to help me load the truck up ourselves. We drive it all the way to QVC and we were like taking selfies and I was like, we're here, we're at QVC. And when we went to load in the truck, they said to me, denied. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I'm on air and and they were like, your loading dock is too low. You have the wrong truck. And we were like, oh, this is crazy. And literally had to bag and plead. I was like, I'm on camera. She's the president of the company. It was just the two of us. And we had to physically unload all the boxes. And then I went on camera 2 weeks later. So that is how I've run this entire business. So even though, yes, it may seem like, okay, we're here in all these countries and we're in all these places, even to this day, I'm like packing boxes, I'm doing things. And like, that is, I think, what you guys can look at. My favorite quote ever is leap and the net will appear. Because if you could visualize yourself having a company that has products that sell in other countries, that sell online, that sell in Ulta, you can do it. I did it. I mean, I'm still doing it like day by day of loading boxes, going on camera, doing shows at the same time. I mean, learning logistics. So, I mean, it's all possible. And that year, when they said maybe 4 to 5 airings, I was on 50 times my first year. And I don't think any of it would have happened if Aaron and I didn't like roll up our sleeves and say, well, I guess I'm going to drive the truck. So, because I can't afford it. So, I mean, there's definitely things you can do to get to that next level. And it's all about time. It's all about doing the work. And it's all about committing and believing in yourself, because we didn't have anyone else do it for us.
I think this is such an incredible story. And I think it really speaks to the fact that like you didn't have the final product, and whether you're watching this and maybe it's not a physical product, but maybe it's a version of your course. Maybe it's a version of your sales page that you're like, it's not quite ready yet. And I want to wait until my, maybe not buyers. Well, it is literally buyers. It's your customers. I want to wait for it to be perfect to present it. And by the way, we will be posting in the chat. Haley, our incredible social media manager, will be sharing a graphic you guys can download to share on social. But we would love for everyone to post, I won't let fill in the blank stop me from fill in the blank. Because I think I really want you to leave this discussion, leave this summit with these next steps and knowing that things don't have to be perfect. Things are always going to improve and evolve. Now, I do want to kind of transition into something that it seems to always come up when we talk about motivation and fear and mindset. And this is this little thing that happens when you are, you have a great idea, you're working on your project, and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you still haven't made any progress because you keep pushing it off on your to-do list. And Leslie, of course, I'm talking about procrastination, and I would love to know, do you have any words of advice for people who find that, maybe they're procrastinating for a good reason, but maybe it's something that's coming out of fear? I'm not sure.
Procrastination? I've never done that. I don't know what that is. What is this thing you talk about? Yes, I recognize procrastination very well. So I think everybody's different where this is concerned. What I've realized for myself is that I procrastinate when I don't see the next thing to do very clearly. And sometimes what I have to do personally is actually take a step back. Like if I notice that, hey, I'm procrastinating a lot and all that good stuff, I need to take a step back and actually analyze where I'm trying to go. I know that my goal over the next year is XYZ. Okay, so if I want to get to that point, what do I need to do over the next year to get there? What do I need to do over the next 6 months in order to get there? What do I need to do over the next month? And then kind of break it down until I can kind of reverse engineer it to see, okay, what are the next steps I need to do right now? For me, that's the first part. What I started to realize was I used to set these New Year's resolutions, and then I would tell people, yeah, this is what I'm going to accomplish. And I never actually accomplished it. But then there was one year where I realized that, you know what? I set these goals, but I don't really fully plan it out in detail. And I remember that year I spent like 20 hours thinking through where I wanted to go, how I was going to get there, what resources I needed access to, what people I needed to connect with, and all of these things. And that year I made so much progress, way more in like the first month of the year than I'd made in the entire year before. And it was because I had a well-defined plan. So part of it to me is just taking the time to plan it out so that you can figure out what is the next thing I need to do. Another part of it for me has been surrounding yourself with people that are actually going to hold you accountable. Like I'm a part of a mastermind group with some really amazing people, and we tell each other what we're going to accomplish, and we talk about what we're working on and so on. And just having the right people in your corner, that makes the world of difference. So it's having the clarity having the support, and just, you know, when you realize that, hey, this has been going on for too long, just deciding, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to make it happen because I have to make it happen. I am responsible for getting myself to the place where I am trying to go. And I find once I set those things in place, and once I am on a regular basis keeping track of where I'm going, it helps me to avoid the whole procrastination trap. And then for me, another thing, I'm just going to throw this in there. I find that if I'm wasting too much time on social media and all that kind of stuff, it actually encourages me to procrastinate. So I have to take intentional time away from social media. I don't have social media on my phone. I just can't do it because I know that if it's there, it's going to take me down a certain path. Not saying something that you shouldn't be on social media, but I need to know, you need to figure out what works for you and then take the necessary steps to make sure you make it happen.
Oh, that's so great. I have to say, I loved, you guys didn't see it, Kim's face when you said you have no social media on your phone. She's like, wow. This is incredible. And I'm looking in the comments right now. There's so many great questions. And so I would love to open it up to the audience for questions for our panelists, because I know there's so many even follow-up questions to some of your answers here. And I would love to direct our first question to Kim. And the question is, this is my second attempt at starting at a service business. The fear that this attempt will have the same result as my previous business is real. Any tips or suggestions?
Well, I think we gave you a lot during this talk right here. Leslie talked quite a bit about assessing what you did the last time. So, go through line by line, moment by moment, thing by thing, checkpoint by checkpoint, and just look at what happened last time and ask yourself, I love the idea of perspective. So instead of looking at things here, look at things here. So it's a fresh new perspective. What could be different? Who could I connect to in a different way? How could I use the platforms that I have in a fresh new way? What new information has come out that you could now use to make your service even better and therefore your launch even better? So it just requires that awareness, that perspective, and good for you wanting to try it again, even though it didn't turn out the way you wanted to next time. That means you have the desire. That means you have the drive to get it to work this time. You just may have to tweak a few things here and there, and then you may have to tweak it again. And listen, here's the thing. No matter who we are and where we are and what status or perceived status that we all have doubts and bigger dreams and comparison issues. No matter who you are and where you are, you still want to have more and be better. And that's a part of life. And so take what you already know, dig into what you did before, and just tweak it all and look at it from a fresh perspective, or maybe here.
I really appreciate the fact that you bring up the point of like always learning and not feeling like you're ever going to get to a point where you know it all and then you're like, cool, I'm good. And if it fails, there's nothing I can do. I think that's going to be very encouraging, and it's super helpful. And looking here, and by the way, if we don't get to your questions, because there's so many great questions, we will add in all of our the social handles for all of our panelists so you can stay in touch with them. Highly recommend that you do. But we have a question here from Roseanne Higgins, who asks, how to get tunnel vision on one thing, not 20 things. How do I reel my addiction to so much input and so many ideas to make one amazing thing happen and then do it again? And Sarah, I'm going to bring this one to you and what you would say to that.
That's a great question. And I think everybody kind of has, especially if you are like a dreamer and you're somebody who thinks, oh, I could do this and this and this and this, which has definitely happened to me a lot. It's like, oh, I don't know, create this. I could create a teachable page. I could do, right? So I think that is a great question because focus is so important, right? So if you have an idea and you want to follow it through, for example, I have this idea I sketched on a piece of paper for a curling iron. Right. And I am some days, now the curling iron has been on the market for 8 years in January. And so there's some days where I'm like, have I done too many curling iron tutorials? And what you have to realize is like this one thing, this one vision is sometimes what kind of defines you and allows you to connect with other people and create other opportunities that can fulfill your like tree branches of all the exciting things you want to do, right? So have that core foundation and have something that defines you. And it's okay to say like, you know, maybe I'm just an expert at curling your hair, and that's what I'm going to continue to do for so many years. But that'll afford you the ability to have those offshoots, and you know, maybe it's creating a different type of website or creating a different type of product. But I think having that foundation gives you some stability. You know, even for us, we were like, we need to launch more hair care, we need to launch more accessories, and it's like, but at the end of the day, sometimes everyone just kind of comes back to us for that one thing. And I think that is okay because it gives you solid foundation. It gives you something to focus on and something to master. And I think once you've really mastered something and you become yourself, like you have all this education. And I think that's what's so great about Teachable or about connecting with everybody here is that, like, even for me, when I learned about Teachable, I was like, there are so many amazing things that I could learn that could help my business, but keeping to the core of like what you love. And I feel like also, if you're not sure what that one thing is, maybe dig deep down. Like I love what Kim was saying about like going back to what was a moment in your life that you were so happy and you felt like you were that, you know, like so successful. This one thing brought you so much joy. And sometimes that is your thing, you know, like that is when I was a teenager, I was the one on the bus playing sports, but I was doing everyone's hair, you know? So it's like, I went back to what I enjoyed as a kid. And that's what gives me that like clarity to focus on one thing.
So great. And please like type into the chat. Let us know, what is your one thing? What is that thing that speaks to you that you're passionate about? Goodness, there's so many questions, and I wish we could just spend like 2 hours going through these. We do have a question here from Isabel, who is asking, and by the way, Isabel, you might also find tonight's session at 5:30 Eastern, no, 6:30 Eastern, with Anthony O'Neill on finances. Super helpful. But their question is, how do you deal with financial uncertainty or difficulties getting in the way of you actually being productive and focusing on the next step after a failed business or partnership? And Leslie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
So when I left, this is not a failed business or partnership, but when I left my job and I started doing this stuff full time, it was actually rough. Like, it was ridiculously rough. I remember one time my wife came to me and she said, we need to buy diapers. And I said to her, I know, but how are we going to buy it? And that felt terrible. Financial uncertainty, it's painful, especially when you are responsible for other people. So I completely get that. How do I deal with that? I let that junk fuel me. Like, I make the commitment that I'm going to get out of this situation. And no matter what happens, I'm going to try my best to make sure we never end up here again. Why? Because my family depends on me. Why? Because my son needs diapers. Why? Because this is my responsibility. So for me, we're talking about financial and uncertainty and instability and all that stuff. Dig deeper into that. Dig deeper into that and determine that I'm going to get out of this. And no matter what happens, I will never get back there. Now, obviously, you can't control everything. But for me, when those kinds of situations come, you use it as fuel, like fully internalize that junk. Yes, things are rough. And you know what? I'm a make sure to do what I need to do. If I need to be up early, studying my behind off, I'm going to do that so that I could learn what steps I need to take so that this doesn't continue. And it goes back to, you know, also the stuff about fear, right? I love what was said earlier, what Kim had to say. And the way I look at it is, listen, if you're afraid to make it happen, awesome. That means you're actually like trying to do something that's outside of your comfort zone, and nothing amazing happens within your comfort zone. Anyone that's accomplished anything significant, anything huge, I guarantee you they've had fears, and they look at those fears and they go through it and they make it happen. So for me, it's about determination, using those negative situations, you know, this problem that you had before, or the financial insecurity and all that good stuff. Let that fuel you and then commit to changing that situation. That's the way I look at it.
Hmm. That's I love I love the way that you put that, and I really hope that for those of you in the chat that are in that situation, I think that's a very empowering mindset to have of like, this isn't going to stop me. This is going to actually help propel me to achieve something. Okay, there's a very, very good question in here, and I think it's important to bring it up. Um, Up until this point, we've been discussing like the fear of failure, the fear of the what ifs, it doesn't work, what will people think of me? But I think equally, something that doesn't always get discussed as much is this fear of success. And a lot of the times we don't worry about if it's not going to work. We're self-sabotaging because we're scared of what if it does. And Kim, I see you nodding, and I do want to direct this question to you. What are your thoughts on the fear of success?
It's a very real thing. And I'm sure there are people who go like, what? The fear of success? What? Well, sometimes we worry that we will outgrow people in our field, our family or our friends, or sometimes you worry that now you have to pay more taxes, or sometimes you worry, what will happen? People will want more from me. And I know this because I've had these experiences. I get it. I think what you can focus on instead is what you will be able to do with your success, what you will be able to, how you will be able to change more of the corner of your world. There are people that you will be able to take with you on this ride. There are some people that I'm going to tell you now, you will not be able to take with you because they're not resonating in that space. You can teach them and ask them to come along and ask them to elevate themselves so they can come along. And I don't mean elevate as in you're better than anyone, but there is something that happens when you begin to move past people in your realm. So you either bring them along with you, you teach them so they can lift themselves, and then you go and serve the way you're meant to serve. So you use that success to make the change in the world that I know that you came here to do. You use that success to get yourself to the next place. Because here's the thing, I think really tapping into your why. What is your why? I'm hoping that no one in this summit is doing their thing, so that they can become rich and famous. Because can I tell you, that's fleeting too. All of it's fleeting. You have to be really tapped into the why of you're doing this and who you are here to help. And then that makes it just a little bit easier to get through. You will then be thinking about, oh, I really want to be successful because of all the change that I'll be able to make and all the people that I'll be able to help. So I that would be my answer for that. It's really a real thing, and we sabotage ourselves, or we don't, let ourselves get too far or too big because we're afraid of something else. And I think focusing on the biggest picture of all, which is your why, will help you with that.
So great. And I hope that's helped answer your question. I know that's going to resonate with a lot of people here. Oh goodness, this is going so quickly. There was a question here around, I'm going to be paraphrasing it. I apologize, but around being consistent on social media. So I think that when we're first starting out, one of the greatest tools for reaching new people, reaching new audiences is social. And there's this kind of challenging phase where when you're starting out, you're doing everything right. You're being consistent. You're doing everything you possibly can, and you're not seeing the payoff. You're not seeing people engage, and it feels like nothing is happening. Sarah, I would love to hear your thoughts of like when you were at the beginning stages. I imagine your first post didn't go viral. How did you kind of grow into that, and like what are some things that helped you get through it?
Well, it's interesting because I was actually a hairdresser before social media was a thing, and I think part of my industry of being part of the crew was to not share any details. So it was actually pretty hard to be that open and say, wait, social media is a thing. I now need to show myself backstage doing my job. Like, this is stressful. So I definitely think there's a difficulty because you have to overcome the fear of like expressing yourself online to people that you might not know, and sometimes it's scary because even you can think back and be like, what, did I just say something that was wrong? Did I show something that was wrong? And I think that when social media first started and I thought like, I love to create content. I love being an artist. I love talking to the beauty editors. I love doing desk sides. I love doing all these things. Like, how do you translate that to social? And I also, how do you be an artist with a portfolio, and how does that translate to social? And how do you kind of like navigate the whole thing? And I, a couple of years ago, had an idea, and I think this kind of goes back to what you were talking about with your New Year's resolutions, because I definitely want to not keep them. And I thought, why don't I utilize social media as just a portfolio-based project for myself? No one's assigning it to me. Nobody said I have to do it. No one's paying me to do it, right? And I literally was like, what would I do that I love? So I created a hashtag on January 1st called 365 Days of Braids. And I posted a different style every single day for an entire year. And that was such an interesting moment for me, because for the first 2 months, I think a lot of people, like, it was before it became that big of a thing to be on social that much. And a lot of clients were like laughing at me, making fun of me a little bit. Like, why are you doing that? That's crazy. I think, my husband at 11:59 was like, can I take a picture of your hair? And he was like, what are you doing that you're asking me to do this? Like, is this necessary? And nobody was watching it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. But I thought I need to create content. So for 2 months goes by, one of my clients actually, funny enough, really laughed at me. Now she's like an Instagram queen, literally with millions of followers, and that's all she does. But so a couple months go by and nothing happens. And I could have given up. I could have quit, which is typical probably in my personality to get like, oh, maybe I'll just do something else, right? But I was like, I want to stick this out because I don't know how else to use social except for to create art or content. So I kept going. And then I was with Reese Witherspoon, and I was styling her hair for a TV segment, just curling her hair, getting her ready. And someone in the room said, do you know Sarah's doing this like 365 days of braids? She's like posts a different braid every day. And then she looked at me and she was like, oh my God, braid my hair. Will you braid my hair right now? And I was like, yeah. So I did a Dutch fishtail, this really like cool detailed look, took photos of it. It like opened up this door for a moment that I was like, oh, wow. And she was like, yeah, totally. She reposted it, shared it everywhere. And she was like, oh, look at how cool this art is. And that was a moment for me where I was like, wow, this is opening up a lot of doors. And then when I was doing my typical, desk sides, if they would say, how do I recreate the look? And I would talk to editors about it. Then I had Allure reach out and say, can you do a week of looks for us? Then I had Brides magazine say, could you do a bridal week for us? And then come Halloween, so this is a long commitment. Come Halloween, they said, Pop Sugar said, can you do Halloween looks for us? So it turned into something much bigger than this initial idea that really, if I could have given up because it failed for a good 2 to 3 months. But I stuck it out, and finally it opened up the doors by just me being committed to like consistent content, and really kind of just opened up this opportunity for you to create. You can create your own portfolio. That's a great thing about social media. It's literally there sitting there. You can start a new account tomorrow and just get going. So it's interesting.
Well, I think that also highlights the importance of being creative and kind of thinking like the mentality of not if it's going to happen, but how. And the fact that you're like, why don't I do 365 different braids? Like a very creative idea. And obviously you were consistent that you're like, oh, actually, this actually is leading to something, even if it's like 2 or 3 months later. Really, really great questions here in the chat. I think just because we're coming close to time for this session, I would really love to hear from each of you of what would be your kind of, when you look back at your journey, everything that you've done, what is one thing that you wish you knew then that you know for sure now? And Leslie, I'd like to start with you. And I know there's probably going to be a lot of things, but I think this will be very empowering for people.
What I wish I knew then that I know now is the power of building a personal brand. Whereas, in the beginning, it was more about, hey, I'm teaching a concept. I am teaching an idea. Now I realize that people really are looking for connection. And if they can connect with you, it makes those ideas and concepts even more powerful. So if I had to go way back, I would start more as a personal brand. This is me personally, because I just see the value in connection and how that can help to propel whatever it is you do in business and life.
I hope that's reassuring for people who are like, I don't know if I want to be the face of my business. Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
And Kim?
I would do nothing different. It was all perfect. No. What would I do differently? I I have shiny squirrel syndrome, and like I think it was one of the questions that we had, how do you know what's the one thing to do? I would have more quickly honed in on one thing, knowing that these other things could happen. They're still there. Ideas don't ever go away if they're your ideas and your dreams. Just get one thing flowing. I'm from a generation, there was a variety show, and the guy would come on and spin plates in the air, and he would spin a plate and then spin a plate, and he'd go back and spin that plate, and eventually plates would fall down because you can't keep all the plates spinning at the same time. I would spin maybe 3 plates and get those plates spinning, and then hire people to spin them for me while I go spin the new plates. That's what I would do. And that's what I am doing now.
So good. And last but not least,
having started a retail brand and a business, there's a lot of crazy things that happen and a lot of things we've learned. And I will say that, like, if I knew all of the things I knew now, I would actually have started a little bit smaller. I know this might sound crazy, right? But in the very beginning, we had this idea and we were like, QVC, Target, like Ulta, we went like, we have to go as big as possible and we have to go everywhere. So Erin and I, my sister and I, literally went and traveled to every single buyer we could find to try to pitch them this idea, right? And they all were like, yes, right? So it was a kind of a crazy thing that we tried to go so big and tried to maintain it as if we were like some huge funded company, but it was like the two of us working. Sometimes we work all night. Sometimes we're in the warehouse till 3 a.m. And what's so interesting now today, especially due to like COVID and a lot of things that have happened and a lot of like changes in the world, what I'm finding so valuable is this like direct to consumer business. And even for my retail business, but also like you were talking about personal branding or looking at like a lot of options, right? There's actually something so powerful about connecting just individually, like we have this college program and I love all of them so much because they're so excited about the brand and learning the story behind what we do. And then they're sharing it on their campus. And I think that's kind of the opportunity here, even like a Teachable. I love this idea because I've been on QVC over 350 times and there's usually like, I don't know, they say something like 10 to 20 million people watching, which is so exciting and so much fun. But at the same time, I'm like, I have no clue who you are. Like, I don't know who's watching this show. I don't know who's buying. And it became very challenging for us to even manage because it was just so much. And it was just so broad that I think now if I had known this, I would have started like really getting to know my customer and getting to know who am I teaching how to do that? Who am I selling this to and why? And I think what's been so phenomenal is like the stories that have come out of like real people that have like reached out and said like, this is what this has done for me. And this is like why this has made me more confident. And I think that's valuable because like, I think to Kim's point back, it's like, what is the why? Like, why did I invent a curling iron? Like I had this job as a hairdresser, which I could keep doing, but I did it so that I could connect and actually like hopefully make a difference. So somebody felt more beautiful and felt more confident, So I think that's my advice. So it was a little long-winded, but like to focus on something small because that can actually be the big thing. That can be super meaningful.
For sure. And I think that's an advantage that everyone who's just starting out has is, you don't need to pretend to be this big enterprise. You have less people that you can connect with, and it makes it so much easier and more achievable. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Before we finish things out, I know people were like, how do I work with you? How do I follow you? Where do I get the beach waiver? So can we go around and just share the best way to stay connected with you? And we'll start here with Leslie.
Best way, you can reach me at becomeablogger.com. That's my main home on the web. If you want to get personal and you want to text me, if you actually go on your phone, if you're in the US and Canada, to textleslie.com.
I'm going to text you.
Yeah, do it. Do that right there. Textleslie.com. It'll pull up the number and you could just text Teachable so that I knew that you came from here. And you'll literally be texting with me and we can connect that way.
Amazing. And just so you guys know, in the wrap-up email that you're getting, it's all included in that as well. And let's go, down here. So Kim?
Yes. So I am at Kim Coles on the Instagram. I am Real Kim Coles on the Facebook. I'm at Kim Coles on the Twitter. Oh yes, and I have a goodie for everyone. You just go to Story with Kim, and it's a mini course that's on Teachable where I show you how to get your stories out of you and get you ready to be able to share them with the world. So Story with Kim is my freebie for everyone, but at Kim Coles almost everywhere else, and it's really me.
Amazing. And Sarah.
Instagram, I'm at Sarah Potempa. And Beachwaver is at the Beachwaver on Instagram, and our website is beachwaver.com. And if you're interested in my hairstyling career, that's sarahpotempahair.com, which is kind of a totally different thing. But yeah, mostly beachwaver.com, I guess. And DM me. And also, if you guys are interested in Beachwaver Babes or our BW Campus Wave, those are our college programs and our influencer blogging groups.
Amazing. And again, that will all be in the wrap-up email that you get in a beautiful PDF, so you don't have to remember it all. Thank you all so much. A huge thank you in the chat. Let all of our panelists know that you've enjoyed this. And until next time, we'll see you at 5:30, where the discussion around mindset and confidence does not end. We have a fireside chat with Lovey Ajayi-Jones and Jay Shetty. And until then, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.